This is Headline USA Editor-in-Chief Ken Silva, and you're about to hear an interview I conducted on February 9th, 2022 with the late, great Roger Charles, a U.S. Marine, an award-winning journalist, and investigator whose work included a stint on OKC bomber Timothy McVeigh's defense team, work that led him to writing one of the best books on the subject, Oklahoma City, What the Investigation Missed and Why It Matters. As a print journalist, I don't typically release my recorded interviews, but I want the public to hear this one because it's near and dear to my heart for several reasons, not the least being the fact that Roger tragically died less than 10 days after our interview, making it the last one he gave in his storied career. I first started corresponding with Roger in late 2021. At the time, I had a simple goal: to write a story about then Attorney General Merrick Garland's role in prosecuting Timothy McVeigh and how Garland helped cover up for the others who were involved in that deadly April 19th, 1995 attack. Little did I know that my interview with Roger would change my career and in many ways my life. Indeed, 3 years, dozens of articles, and numerous hours of interviewing everyone from FBI agents like Bob Ricks to victims like Kathy Wilburn Sanders, all the way to alleged conspirators like notorious Andreas Strassmeyer. And I'm still writing about this case. Sadly, Roger never got to see any of that. But one of Roger's closest friends and allies in the fight for OKC truth, Jesse Trenadu, once told me that Roger would frequently say, "out fucking standing," when he thought someone did a good job. I'd like to think Roger would have said that about my work. God willing, one day I'll be able to ask him. Until then, rest in peace, Roger, and thank you again for the generous time and guidance you gave me in our brief time knowing each other. One of the things about this Oklahoma City, the whole thing, it's like, I find it so hard to summarize in an elevator pitch. Like, if we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein or JFK or these other bizarre conspiracies, it's very easy to summarize. Oklahoma, it's bizarre.
You've got so many characters involved.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the Keogh brothers. You've got the, who they are, Chevy and Sean Keogh.
Probably need a quick refresher on those, actually.
Their dad was a survivalist, Vietnam vet, a Marine vet, and a loon, basically. Maybe he was a loon before he went. He's certainly a loon when he came back. Survivalist and Christian identity and all that. And they were basically up in Idaho mostly. But they spent time in Elohim City.
Right.
And in fact, do you know who David Paul Hammer is?
Was he the guy in McVeigh's jail?
Yeah. Hammer's book, which I served as kind of fact checker for, and the woman who wrote the book. So when I first read it, I said, "Man, this is the manuscript." I said, "This is really good stuff." And a woman named Margaret Roberts wrote the book. And I did fact checking for him. But anyhow, Hammer says that one of the Keogh brothers, I forget which one, I think it's Shane, drove a Ryder rental truck from Bullhead City, Arizona to Kansas to pay off a meth debt to McVeigh. Right? So you've got them involved, you've got the ARA involved, the characters. And then, of course, I think the most important guy, other than McVeigh, is this German pretend Nazi.
Oh, Andy the German.
Andy the German. Yeah.
Is he still alive?
Oh, yeah.
Is he still?
Yeah. I had a very senior CIA official that I had known through Marine Corps connections tell me, and it's a footnote in my book, that this guy said he'd seen a damage control or damage assessment report the CIA had done to to see if they had any exposure, any of our agents, contract or ex-agents or whatever involved, and that supposedly give themselves a clean bill of health, but I can identify one. And that was the first guy that Strassmeyer stayed with when he came here in 1988. Strassmeyer's father was a very powerful, influential apparatchik in the West German government. He was Helmut Kohl's principal guy for reunification. Andy's brother, one of them, was a Berlin council member. So you think, and he'd been in the German army. So he's going to go to live in this godforsaken place in Elohim City. It just doesn't.
No.
Anyhow, so Andy, according to my CIA guy, was in fact over here working for German military, for German intelligence, and reporting to the FBI what he was. And you look at the whole thing, the evidence is just overwhelming. Yes, and leave that aside. But when you add it with this other, I mean, to me, it's a laydown. He's a German pretend Nazi that we brought over here to stir things up. He's never interviewed by the FBI until
he's out of country.
And I've got the 302s of the. How's the weather there in Berlin, Andy?
Okay.
Pretty good, thank you. That's the kind of interview.
Probably like the Ray Epps interview, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so Andy's a key guy, and then you get into the Carol Howe connection, all right? And Carol was just incredible, but we had the misfortune as a country of her being managed, if you want to use the word, by some really incompetent buffoons in the ATF. They just really didn't know how to handle her and what to make of her information.
Weren't they about to raid Elohim City based on her information and the FBI stuff?
You know where that comes from, though?
No.
That comes from a FOIA that the New York Times reporter Joe Thomas put in.
Oh, okay.
That was not material provided in discovery. Had it not been for that FOIA, and it's one of these classic things of left hand, right hand in the government not knowing.
Yeah.
Had it been properly staffed for discovery, it would never have been released. But it came in as a straight FOIA, and the people doing the FOIA just didn't know about what all was. And I've got copies of the whole thing, and I'd be glad to share them. But it says explicitly that Angela Finley Graham, who was the handler for Carol Howe, ATF office, December of '94, contacts the INS about having an INS agent accompany them when they raid Elohim City to arrest Strassmeyer. That's pretty blatant. Yeah. So, and what happens, and we have copies, it takes about 2 months, 16, 17 February, the certification comes from Washington to the INS regional office in Dallas. Now, at this point, this is '94. INS is part of the State Department, Immigration Naturalization Service. All right. So the certification from headquarters, INS, basically doesn't say that Strassmeyer's an illegal alien. It says he is not a legal resident of the United States. Okay. So that's, he's not here legally. Okay. Yeah. That's what they need. That's enough. So just before that, the ATF had begun some active preparations, reconnaissance, and so on. And it used the Oklahoma Highway Patrol anti-marijuana small plane to fly them over the Elohim City and take pictures and so on. They had an evidence technician, a couple guys from Dallas came up to videotape and all this. So that was about the 9th of February. Then the 16th of February, they get the certification fax from Washington. So Angela Finley Graham goes out and meets with the OHP pilot who had already overflown her and evidence people to set up, I believe, the timing of it, clearly make arrangements. We want you up flying when we raid and go get Strassermeyer. And at this point, the Highway Patrol pilot says, well, you don't know about the FBI investigation in Elohim City? And all kinds of shit happens. Panic meetings. The bottom line of it is Carol Howe is fired by the ATF. Go home, go away. We don't want anything to do with you. And what's the first thing that happes after the bomb goes off? Emergency.
Oh, they call her in, don't they?
Yeah. So, I mean, it is really catch and jammer kids kind of stuff. The FBI did not tell the INS they had an investigation. And they don't have to, that's okay. They're supposed, the way it's supposed to work is that the local U.S. attorney coordinates, deconflicts, interagency.
Yeah, they have these joint terrorism task forces now after 9/11. After 9/11.
And they had one then.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's why Danny Colson was up in, and I can get into that. In 1995, the terrorism task force were set up based on the FEMA region. And in Danny's case, the FEMA region was there in a suburb of Dallas, and it had 5 states. It had Texas, Mexico, Oklahoma, anyhow, I've got a list, 5 or 6 states. But he's the head of it, not because he's the SAC in Dallas, but because he's the senior FBI agent, and they always are the heads of these terrorism task forces.
Okay.
And that's why he's up there that night.
Okay.
Right? So, let me go back to this silver flight. And so the FBI finds out the ATF is going to screw things up by arresting their informant.
Oh, so Andy?
Andy. And
that's why they call out the raid, you think?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was just like a pissing contest type thing.
No. This,
okay.
You're going to screw up our operation. And as the pilot says, the FBI has an ongoing investigation. He's flown the FBI over Elohim City. So he knows. Now, why he didn't tell them when he made the first flight with them, the ATF people in early February, I don't know. But we have a record, and the record reflects what they wanted it to, not necessarily everything it should have reflected. So, by the way, there's also an interesting document after this. Within a month or so after the bombing, the FBI tells the Secret Service, who had agents killed in the building, we are initiating an investigation of Elohim City. So here's the FBI lying to the Secret Service. Oh, we're just starting an investigation.
Oh, okay, right.
I mean, Elohim City was red hot. They moved a Department of Defense satellite over.
Yeah.
There are only 2 of them times it's happened. Merrick Garland was the guy in charge of Justice Department connections for both. One was Kaczynski, Unabomber, when they located him in Montana, and the others, and this is in a Secret Service document. There's nowhere in the FBI document you'll find it, but that's another, I'll show you that document. The FBI tells the Secret Service, oh yeah, we're now investigating Elohim City. Well, you've been there. We've got, I think it's an ATF document dated 1985 that they're investigating Elohim City.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Millar, when he left Maryland suburb of Baltimore, Catonsville, I think it was, in about 74, through his ex-son-in-law's fight for custody with his kids, there are all these ATF, FBI business cards, people that are investigating him back here in 74.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you meant, I think, wasn't there threats against the Murrah building emanating from 85? Was that Elohim?
That was that's part of the...
That wasn't Elohim City, that was...
some of the same players. The guy that's executed that night, Schnell, he was deeply involved in the I think it's 83, maybe 85 is when they had the standoff at the compound. I think it's 83, but anyway,
Okay.
Not a big deal. It's easily determined.
Sure.
And what happened was the guy that was building the warhead for this, what they were going to do is not park a truck. They were going to have, a dump truck with some sort of missile they were going to build and use the back of the dump truck with sand, I guess, to launch the missile.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of clever, actually.
Very much, yes. But when their ordnance guy is doing something with a warhead, it goes off and he loses a couple fingers or something. And these people, this is a sign from God, this is not a good idea. So cancel.
Okay.
They had also, on another episode, been en route to kill the senior FBI guy in Arkansas and a U.S. attorney, and that's a Hutchison, who's I think currently the governor. But they had a car accident on an icy road, same thing. Oh, sign from God, this is a bad idea.
Yeah, you get cold feet easily.
Yeah. So it's just a collection.
Yeah.
And the FBI is playing them like a fiddle. And Strassmeyer even laughed and joked about, these poor idiots. All you have to do is put on a little German accent, and they get their knees start knocking. And when you show one of his grandfathers,
some old Nazi medal or something.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a certificate of lineage, and he's either in single digits, maybe no more than double digits, as a Nazi party member.
Ooh, okay, wow.
Really, they wet themselves up.
I'm sure, yeah, he's an original.
Yeah, so this is just, but somehow they blew up the damn building. Now, Cash had an off-the-record interview with McVeigh in February of '96. And John told me the first question he asked, and Cash didn't tell me this for a number of years. He died in 09, I think. 07, 09. Anyhow, but John told me, he said, first question I asked, I said, Tim, how'd you get by all that security looking for you, waiting on you? He said, they just rocked back in the chair on the back legs, crossed his arms, and gave me a big shit-eating grin. Wouldn't you like to know? I just, going back through some notes, just found a thing, and I've just forgotten it, that I've got like 43 of these notebooks. But Stephen Jones told somebody that Tim told him that Tim knew that Danny Coulson and the FBI was inside the building waiting on him that night. I don't have a clear picture of what happened.
Okay.
All right. There are two trucks. There's a transponder that the bad guys knew was going to be found. The Aryan Republican Army guys are pretty damn sophisticated. Technically, they got a Bearcat scanner and could listen to the FBI, state police, or local police radio traffic. So they could also find if you had a device transmitting electric energy.
Oh, okay. Kind of radio waves.
Yeah. So they found this device, I think, and use that knowledge to put it on a decoy truck. The FBI sitting back the night before the bombing, all fat, dumb, and happy. We got them covered. We know where they are. No, they didn't.
Oh, so they might have tricked the FBI at the last minute?
That night before, there are 3 credible sightings. I think it's 3 credible sightings of ninja people with hoops on the streets or interstate shoulders. Now, I'm retired military Marine Corps. It's intel work and so on. So hoops are classic direction finders for, it's like you've got a collar on a grizzly. That's how you track them, right? Mm. And so you're looking for some transmitter. And they've shut down the interstate over on the west side of Oklahoma City. And then there are 2 places downtown where they've stopped traffic and everything. Not that there was a lot of traffic, but these ninja-clad guys are out with hoops looking for something. Mm. Now, 3 years after the bombing, the Washington Post has a above-the-fold lead story by their Department of Justice guy about a joint task force from the government that has studied terrorism, particularly started after Oklahoma City. But that was the impetus, but it's looked across the board at all aspects of terrorism and so on. And the FBI has identified its 2 most significant equipment failures. One is a smaller, more easily concealable vehicle and personnel tracking device. Mm-hmm. This 3 years of study, well, golly, where did that come from? Maybe because you didn't have one in 95. And the other thing, in that same time frame, I think it's before the study came out, actually. I happened to see a Metro item here. The FBI had busted a bank robbery gang that had been really eluding them for some time, and they did it by putting a new tracking device they just developed on a van that the group used, and were able to track their movements. So, again, is it somebody standing up and saying, "Oh, the key was this"? No, but when you start putting these pieces together, right, you don't have to force them. They had a problem, and back to Oklahoma City, the bombing note. So you had those people looking for something that night. I think you clearly had 2 trucks. You had a decoy, and the FBI fell for the decoy. Mm.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm working on a story focusing on Merrick Garland's role in all of this. Yeah. And I'm wondering, what's your understanding of what his role was? Because, there's these recent puff pieces on, he oversaw the investigation, but he was only at that one preliminary hearing. Like, what exactly did he do? Is he just a supervisor or a liaison to the Clintons?
He was working directly, they had him as chief of staff for Deputy Attorney General Jamie Gorelick. Mm-hmm. Now, she is really somebody worth paying attention to.
Okay.
Right? She's the one that had the firewall set up that prohibited the FBI and the CIA talking about the 9/11 guys before the 9/11.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. That was her little contribution to things.
She's not the wife of that one right-wing guy.
No, she's not a right-wing guy. No,
okay.
I don't know. I've never seen anything about who her husband is. That'd be a good question.
Not the Bin Laden hunter, the Alex station.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
So,
but your mission, sir, is to maybe find out a little bit more than I know about Jamie Gorelick. Now, my late father-in-law, great guy, was a lawyer here in town and president of the D.C. Bar at one point, and he knew her, and he said she was really pushy. Mm-hmm. So she had been the general counsel early in Clinton's first term at DOD. So then Reno's deputy left, and they moved Gorelick over to be deputy to Janet Reno. and she brings Merrick Garland as her chief of staff. And he's already in the Justice Department at the lower level. But that really elevates his status. He goes out on the 21st of that Friday. And I thought he stayed until like the 12th or 14th of May. I had not seen any comments anywhere that he was back here in D.C. But there's a guy named Richard Booth that I work with. Richard's very, very sharp, very good researcher, very smart. I had asked him to see if he could get the White House logs from the Clinton. Did I tell you this one?
Yeah, I've actually looked through the logs.
Okay.
He provided me with them.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So there's Merrick Garland.
The night before the hearing, right?
And meeting with Hillary. Wow.
That's wild.
When you look at that transcript of that, if you've looked at it, the 27th of April, I wondered when I said, "This is Harvard long star, boy, he's supposed to," and he's so ill prepared for some of it. He doesn't have that many witnesses, and he's stumbling all over them. What the hell is going on? Well, he wasn't rehearsing them the night before, like he should have been. He was getting orders from Hillary. So, but that's
yeah. What do you think happened that night?
Well, Hillary's he's going over. There were 4 parties in the courtroom. McVeigh's trial. There's McVeigh. There's Stephen Jones, his defense. There's the judge, and then there's the prosecution task force people. At that point, it's Beth Wilkinson's the lead, but she's not.
By the way, so I don't think it was Stephen Jones. I looked up the attorney's name for the preliminary hearing. Okay, this is
on down. No, I've talked to him. I really think he did a great job considering how he had just been thrown into it. John Coyle, I think's his name, and I spoke to him just a few years ago. I was thinking of writing another book, but anyhow, the 4 people in the trial in the courtroom.
Okay.
McVeigh, Jones, Mage, the judge, and then the Justice Department. Hartzler was the lead, but the person that did most of the work was Beth Wilkinson that litigated the case. So the thing about it is all 4 of those people or groups had the same objective. Contain this to Timmy with minor assistance from Terry Nichols, who, by the way, I think I'll make a compelling case to you. McVeigh intentionally set up, all right, and then 48. And McVeigh, according to Cash, who was very, very connected. I worked on the Jones team for about 4.5 months during the trial. But Cash had been connected with him a lot longer than I had, to a guy named Richard Reyna, who chief field investigator. But the common objective was, keep it to McVeigh and Nichols and 48. And what Cash said was that McVeigh had told Jones, if you get too close to bringing others in, I'll just stand up and say to the judge, Your Honor, I want to see you in chambers. I'll go in and tell the judge, I did it all myself, and that'll be the end of it. Now, I like Stephen Jones a lot. A personable guy, treated me very well. But he had a cash cow he was milking. But the big thing was, he had a lot of media attention. Yeah,
Wendy Painting's book makes it seem like he cared about the media attention more than...
Oh, yeah. Wendy's very sharp. Yeah. But then she's right on the money there. Stephen loved that media spotlight. And nothing wrong with that. But when he would, for example, McVeigh did not rent the truck. He's not John Doe 1. All right? I believe it's one of the Ward brothers. Have you seen their name? Tony, Peter, and There's 3 Ward brothers, Tony, Peter, but they lived at Elohim City.
Okay.
Until about a week before, when their family, just in the middle of the night, leaves with no notice to anybody and goes to Belen, New Mexico, where one of the parents, former FBI agent, retired FBI agent, had set up one of these compounds with the neo-Nazis. Interesting. But anyhow, there's Tony Ward, Peter Ward. Well, I've got that anyhow. But one of the Ward brothers is John Doe 1. And this is where Garland really did an incredible job. He was able to get the media to buy that McVeigh was John Doe 1. Yeah. I'll share with you a chapter from the second book that I was working on with Margaret Roberts, and I think we make an absolutely compelling case. That's not the case. That McVeigh is not John Doe 1.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was only shitty lawyering at Jones, or, that's one version, Jones' hands were tied by this threat from McVeigh. If he got too into this in the courtroom about him not being John Doe 1, McVeigh, judge, it's over.
Right.
So, and Jones didn't want that. I'll just give you another example. I'm out there in February of '97. The trial actually starts, I think, in late March. And so we get a tranche of 302s from the FBI, discovery. And I see there's a number of 302s of telephone interviews by this senior FBI agent. The judge had directed that the prosecution query all federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies as to any relationship with Strassmeyer.
The judge ordered that.
Because Jones had been raising so much hell.
Okay.
So they all come back no, except one. The CIA says, we've turned over our file on Strassmeyer to the prosecution task force in Denver, Beth Wilkinson. So here's the sequence. I find the 302, I'm looking at it. So I take it to Jones. I said, Stephen, look at this. The CIA's got a file on Strassmeyer. He reads it. It's a very short 302. Well, draft a letter, have Rob Knight, the deputy lawyer for Jones, review it, make sure it's format and everything. Send it to the judge, telling him that, asking him that we want him to demand that the prosecution share this discovery material. Okay, give him a deadline. I've got copies of all this stuff. And we'll see what happens. So, deadline comes, no response. So, the initial letter went to the prosecution task force. They ignored it. So then I go to Jones, well, deadline came and went, okay. Draft another letter, this time to the judge, and tell him we think we should be granted access to the same file that CIA gave the Justice Department. Okay, give him a deadline, give Rob 9, send a letter to the judge. So the judge, he doesn't ignore it. He comes back, nope, don't think so. So I went in, I gave Jones, I said, well, we got the judge's answer, Stephen, here it is. And he reads it, I said, why don't you subpoena her? And spontaneous exclamation from Stephen, oh, the judge wouldn't like that. And I was astounded. I'm thinking, whoa, this is a chance to break this whole case.
Right, yeah.
And then, but I realized later that it was important to Jones not to burn the bridge with the judge. And given that I later learned that McVeigh had confessed to him, now if he thought McVeigh was innocent, that might have been a different story.
Yeah.
But is he going to burn the bridge for a guy that's guilty?
Yeah. He's still doing what his client wants, I guess you can argue.
Any more coffee?
Sure, yeah, I'll take a little bit.
Yeah. So We've been very patient here. There's just so many pieces of this thing.
Yeah. It's tangled web.
Yeah, it sure is. Strossmayer is really, he says that this guy that he stayed with out in Manassas when he first came over here, no, I've got some. He, a guy named Petruski, I'm satisfied that Petruski is not what he claims to be. That is claimed to be an Air Force officer for special investigations, which is security guys. So, Strossmayer says his father and Petruski knew each other in Berlin, and Petruski was CIA and so on. And so in '88, when Strossmayer comes over for his first visit, how does he get here? Well, the pretext is he's a Civil War enactor, and it's the anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. And I didn't know this until I got into this story, that when the FBI succeeded in basically busting the Klan, a lot of the Klan guys said, well, we don't want to give up the good friends we've made. Why don't we become Civil War reenactors?
Oh, okay.
And they could sit around wearing their Civil War uniforms and a Confederate flag, drinking their bourbon.
Sure, yeah.
And using the N-word.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly.
So Strossmayer came over for that, but that leads to another point. Are you familiar with the sedition trial?
The sedition trial? No, not at all.
Richard Butler, and about a dozen others from the Hayden Lake Aryan Nation bunch, they were tried in federal court from February to April of 1988 in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And the government is greatly embarrassed, even humiliated. 0 convictions. And I mean, this is a big, big deal. Didn't get a lot of press throughout the country, got some. But it's, so when people talk about sedition, I say, well, what's sedition? You got to go back to the whiskey rebellion. I said, well, no.
Yeah, that's when you said sedition, I'm like, are you talking about January 6th, or what do you even mean?
The sedition trial.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so I think the jury comes out early first week in May or something of '88. 5 or 6 weeks later, Strossmayer goes to the U.S. consulate in Hamburg, Germany, and gets 5 visas. Now, I had a retired career foreign service guy, ambassador rank, high as you can get, tell me that you got 1 visa at a time. He said, I've never saw anybody get multiple visas.
Right.
But and we've got his INS record, and it's been, there's proof that it's been jiggered.
No.
That's when they bring him over to do his thing. And
right.
He starts out down in Texas. You know Pat Kahn, right?
Yeah,
He starts out down there with Pat Kahn, and we've got him nailed down there. And have you read the 2 Newsweek articles?
I read the uncensored one, yeah.
It'd be good to look at the one that actually got printed.
So that's funny you mentioned that, because my first introduction to Pat Kahn was Wendy Painting's book. I go look up the Newsweek article, and I'm like, what? This isn't what Wendy's describing at all. And then it wasn't until I talked to you and Jesse that they mentioned that, well, that's like severely redacted.
It's not in my book with Gumbel.
Oh, yeah?
And that got printed in April of 12. Gumbel had gone over to Germany and spent a week with Strossmayer, I think in 2010, and Stockholm Syndrome. Classic.
Oh, you like the guy?
Oh, my God. Are you a hunter at all?
No, not me.
Okay, well,
Shoot guns, but not for hunting.
Okay, well, Andrew is a very sharp guy. He got a first at Oxford in Romantic languages and stuff like that. He's absolutely clueless about the physical environment.
Okay.
I mean, it's just dangerous. It is.
He's an academic.
He gets these meetings. He's with Strassmeyer in Germany, and Strassmeyer tells him how they used to go hunt deer for food. Well, there are deer seasons, and if you shoot a deer out of season, you can get a serious felony and prosecuted, and fines, and confiscate your weapons and so on. But Strassmeyer tells Gumbel, and this is in the draft of this chapter that Gumbel gives me, and I say, no. He says, we were stopped by a game warden, and we had a dead deer in the car, and he wants us to stop and get out, and he's going to search the car. And I said, well, you can't do that. You've got to get a warrant. So I sent him off to the county seat to get a warrant. By the time he gets back, we've cleaned the deer, we've gutted it, we've taken the hide off, we've eaten it, and there's nothing left. And I'm thinking, a green deer skin you can't burn.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't. You might with enough gasoline, but it's just so bizarre. And the other thing is, and I actually talked to an Oklahoma game warden, and he confirmed, we don't have to go get a warrant. My dad.
If they see the evidence right there, that's probable cause.
If it's in the trunk and they don't see it, they've got that kind of authority. If they have probable cause, and there's been out of season poaching going on, and you're in an area of suspicion, we want to see what's in your car. My dad, deer hunting in West Virginia one time, had leaned his gun up against the front fender of the car while he's eating a sandwich in the car, and damn, they busted him for having a loaded weapon in the car. Well, he wasn't. No, you pay your fine. And,
yeah, exactly.
But Gumbel went on with this thing, and I said, Andrew, this is just 100% bullshit. What about the hoofs? What about the bones, the skull? They didn't eat that.
How would you even eat an entire deer?
You just, and the other one, you look at this one, when he's doing the very limited book tour for our book, he's in Oklahoma City, and I think this is on C-SPAN. And he's talking about when an explosion takes place, there's a blast wave that goes out. And of course, it creates a vacuum. And as it goes, and it's able, as long as the blast wall is strong enough, that vacuum continues. But as the distance goes and the blast wall weakens, then you've got this vacuum behind it, then the air comes rushing in that way. So you get this reverse effect, all right? And Gumbel's clueless about it. He never, I try to explain it. Yes, the initial blast goes out, but then once that blast wall...
The wind has to fill the vacuum.
Yes, he just couldn't grasp that concept. And he gets up and starts talking to these people in Oklahoma about the reverse blast is 3 times more powerful than the forward blast. Einstein would love to hear that.
Yeah, the reverse perpetual motion type thing. It picks up energy.
Yeah. So anyhow.
Yeah. And so back to Garland. Would you characterize him as Beth Wilkinson's boss then?
He was first. This thing is micromanaged from Washington.
Yeah, right. And he was. Would it be fair to characterize the liaison?
He was the hands-on manager, supervisor, and he reported to Jamie Corelli, the Attorney General.
Right.
Reno was not that involved. Very little evidence of her being involved. Now, the other thing that John Cash found, I'll get into that. there were two investigations going on, at least early on. You had the FBI investigation. Then off to the side, the Clinton White House has the Secret Service conducting an investigation. And when Gumbel interviews Weldon Kennedy, the guy in charge of the FBI part early on, he didn't know about the Secret Service. And he says, it's in our book. He says, a quote, I would have ripped her head off and, ripped her jugular if I'd known that, Secret Service was doing this.
Right.
And what happens is a woman named Mary Riley, who's from the Miami office of the Secret Service, and a world-class data analyst for one of the first ones for cell phones. And she's working against the drug cartels in the Caribbean. She's working out of the Secret Service office there in Miami. And so she's brought out to Oklahoma City. Weldon Kennedy, I think, is one that says that the guts of our investigation was the Darrell Bridges phone card. All right. Now, supposedly, if you go by the Garland version of events, that phone card is found, mention of it, its existence, this Saturday or Sunday when the FBI is searching Terry Nichols' house in Kansas. Okay. Well, John Cash got, I'll tell you where it came from, a Friday afternoon fax from the West Coast Telecommunications Company. I think it's West Coast Telecom or something like that. A printout of all the phone calls on that credit card. Right? Well, how'd they get it Friday? And why did they have to say they got it Saturday or Sunday when it was found, when there was a mention of it, a notebook was found, and this is where they're keeping, how the phone call worked. You took a subscription to it, and it was through the Spotlight, which was a very anti-Semitic publication run by the Liberty Lobby. So you'd send in money, and they'd put like $50 on your account, and you don't have to pump quarters into the card.
Sure, yeah.
You call an 800
Put in
number.
the code.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This was early on, and it was a very clever. Lady Gaga's father was one of the leaders of this thing.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then you use postal money orders is how McVeigh and Nichols would submit postal money orders for $50 to replenish and so on. But it is really, it's the guts of the investigation as Garland let it be revealed.
Right, the mainstream narrative.
Yes. It was this woman, Mary Riley, got involved in the secret. She flew out there by Friday. I think she's in Oklahoma City. Clearly by the weekend she's there. And don't know exactly what she did. John Solomon wrote about it in one of his pieces. But she cuts some corners on subpoenas and getting records, phone records and bank records and so on, to the point where they remove her from the investigation. The Secret Service does an internal investigation. She's fired. Don't feel sorry for her. She goes to the Bank of America in Charlotte, becomes head of their IT security division. So, and her girlfriend, who was down in an assistant U.S. attorney in Miami, was working in Janet Reno's in her office. And when Garland found out about that, not Garland, but Weldon Kennedy, he was even more unhappy. But so they have to take Mary Riley off of it, and the FBI then has to start over and rebuild the telephone analysis from scratch.
Gotcha.
And they do, but they get by with things that are just hard to understand. They construct the phone records, that the copy that's used in the courtroom is not the one that was faxed to the FBI, the Treasury Department, to Riley, faxed to Riley on Friday the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
That one's not seen in any of the trials.
Mm.
What happened federal trials. After the 2 federal trials, the Okies decide we want to make sure that Terry Nichols fries. So we're going to bring him back to Oklahoma and try him for
State
charges. And the feds had only tried Nichols and McVeigh for the federal law enforcement officers that were killed.
And Nichols was like involuntary manslaughter at first or something.
So, yeah. And but they wanted the powers that be want to make sure he fries, so they bring him back and have a trial in 2004, I think it is, in Muskogee. And damn, a jury of Oklahomans refused to give him the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't work. But what happened was public defenders are appointed for Nichols in Oklahoma. And the head guy was Brian Hermanson, a really sharp guy. Another guy was Mark Ernest. And I'm going to have to put it, talking too much, sausage. It goes to the state Supreme Court in Oklahoma that the defense team for Nichols' state trial is unhappy they're getting stiffed by the state prosecution team on discovery materials. So it goes to the state Supreme Court. State Supreme Court rules they've got to share or there will be no trial. So what they do, the state prosecution team takes the defense team over to a warehouse. There are 37 4-drawer cabinets. Have at it.
Okay.
Well, they did a phenomenal job considering the resources and everything.
Right.
And in there is a copy of this Friday 4/21 fax of the Darrell Bridges phone card. A bunch of other stuff. Just amazing. I'm going to send you a digital copy of a filing that the defense team made a few months before the trial. Just amazing. I mean, they show, using the government records, that the government was trying to figure out these ARA phone cards are active at a truck stop north of Oklahoma City on the day of the bombing.
So like McVeigh made a call afterwards or what?
We don't know.
You tell me. Yeah, exactly. That's
the
100th mystery in this case.
Yeah. Well, any that's an overview.
Yeah, that's.
I urge you to go back and you can look at the Wikipedia thing on the sedition trial. It's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely check that out.
And in fact, one of the attorneys from the sedition trial was the lead attorneys in the courtroom for the Justice Department on Carol Howe's trial.
Oh, really? Okay. Coincidence, yeah.
Clark Brewster, who was Carol's defense attorney, a really good lawyer, but he's an uber progressive.
Okay.
And I didn't realize this until the summer of 2020, when Trump's going to hold a rally in Tulsa, and 2 prominent local Democrat attorneys go to court to stop him.
Oh, well, one of them
was Clark Brewster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
And-
Brewster not only defended Carol Howe, he later defends David Roberts, who was the head of the Tulsa ATF, who knows a lot. I'm sitting in a car with Mary Mapes, CBS producer, when she calls Brian Hermanson, Nichols' defense attorney, and I took notes. And Mary had talked to David Roberts that weekend before, and Roberts had told her the bomb came out of Elohim City. Bombers, I think it's bombers, came out of Elohim City. The conspiracy was centered in Elohim City, and the FBI shut down the investigation of Elohim City to protect an informant, Yellow Andy.
Right.
Strasberg.
Yeah.
Now, Danny Coulson has pretty much said that last statement in public. We did a BBC piece in.
Is he one of the FBI people that think the investigation should be reopened?
Yes.
Okay, that's where I've seen his names. Yeah, I think in Richard Booth's articles, actually.
Yeah. And Danny's conflicted. He'd like to see it reopened. He hates Louis Free with a passion because Louis didn't protect him on the Ruby Ridge deal.
Oh, okay.
You know, if it comes out what really was involved, the FBI's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
We mentioned a very broad overview of all the mysteries, and I don't even think we've talked about like the 20 witnesses that all say, and that's where Merrick Garland comes in on April 27th. So I was wondering if you could give your take on Garland's performance at that hearing and what he was doing, and was he trying to suppress?
Oh, absolutely.
Certain,
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. Giving one of the key things, and he does have Charlie Hanger, who was the trooper that pulled McVeigh over. That little episode is worth paying a lot of attention to in its own right, because at a time when every state trooper in Oklahoma City that can be spared, or in some of them shouldn't have been, is heading toward Oklahoma City, Charlie Hanger is called not over the dispatch, because we want to keep that open, but on his cell phone. And by the way, when I got out there in '96, Oklahoma City was the first place I saw everybody had a cell phone.
Okay, I was just going to ask about that. Yeah, cell phones and...
Yeah, it was 95. Anyhow, so Charlie Hanger gets called by this, supposedly, by the dispatcher on his cell phone and told, turn around and go north. There's a disabled van that needs help. Excuse me?
In the middle of a terrorist attack?
And it's not a driving thunderstorm or blizzard or anything.
Yeah.
Just the car's broken down the side of this. Weather's it's not even freezing temperatures. It's all set up. And I think McVeigh was part of this.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe.
Okay.
That's my take.
Interesting.
Because Hanger, when he goes around and comes up, sees McVeigh doesn't have his driver's his license plate, pulls him over, and at that point he's got his dash cam going. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when he gets McVeigh, at a certain point, the dash cam goes blank. There are credible reports that a brown pickup truck traveling with the Yellow Mercury, the Yellow Mercury's pulled over, the brown pickup in front pulls over and pauses for a few minutes and then takes off and takes the next exit, which is only about a mile and a half away. And the brown pickup is they make John Doe 2 go away, right? They make the brown, this is Garland, his successes. John Doe 2 goes away, the brown pickup goes away, and the key to allowing that is this sudden get. The Hanger says, well, I hit the wrong button and it stopped it.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
That seems to always happen. I don't know why.
Well, it goes back to I was saying that McVeigh set Nichols up. There are two incidents here. Absolutely crucial evidence is obtained outside of normal protocol. Normal protocol, let's go to Nichols' house in Kansas, Harrington, Kansas. The evidence team comes in, they're going through the kitchen and opening drawers. The protocol is a photographer will take a picture of the door as it's immediately open.
Mm-hmm. And then you can
undisturbed.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it. That's what it was like before we started rummaging around.
Sure.
Well, guess what? In the case of the receipt for the ammonium nitrate, one of the two purchases, but the one that had was wrapped around some gold coin and had McVeigh's fingerprint on it. Guess what? That's in that drawer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced it was planted.
Oh, okay.
And so just forgot to take a picture of the undisturbed, Then the other, in this, the Ryder truck's a pretty good sized truck.
Mm-hmm.
The only evidence the government had that ammonium nitrate was actually used in an explosion was a single piece of fiberglass, part of the box, about that big.
Okay.
All right. Now, the way it was obtained, they set out grids around a certain distance from the federal building, with string and stakes and so on, numbered them so they, FBI is good at, they can be very anal about some of these things. So we got all these grids, and the same protocol pertains. Before you go in and search a grid, you take a picture. And here's what it looks like undisturbed. Well, guess what? The grid that this crucial, the only piece of evidence, and it only had some microscopic pieces of ammonium nitrate, if it did. It's another thing that, we forgot to take a picture of that.
No, of course.
So two absolutely crucial pieces of evidence, and they weren't obtained by protocol.
Not to mention all the surveillance footage.
All of it. And the Secret Service log is crucial there.
That's what Jesse's basing a lot of his litigation off of.
And the Secret Service log is part of the stuff turned over to the state defense team.
Right.
That Cash then gets and shares with us.
Okay.
And I have a digital copy. I'll show you the hard copy.
Okay.
I get you digital
Great.
copy.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
I actually talked to one of the Secret Service guys, who has one of the, I think there are 3 separate entries in this log. This log is kept at Secret Service headquarters, and it's reports from the liaison people they have in the command posts set up in Oklahoma City, and it's set up within just a couple hours of, maybe a little more than a couple hours of the investigation. And so I asked this guy, I said, I've been a liaison officer. I said, you just pass the information back and forth. You don't create stuff or whatever. I said, what was your role? Exactly that. I passed questions from Washington to the people there in the Secret Service in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. Or I would report what I was being told, what I was hearing, or what documents I was reading, key information, in Oklahoma City back to Washington. So very simple. Mm-hmm. So the one here starts off, Louis Freeh and his senior supervisory investigators have a conference call. And in this conference call, there's a very explicit description of this segment, this information that comes off a surveillance tape. They say surveillance tape, right? Well, when John Solomon did a piece on this, the way they finessed it was they had the Secret Service say, well, that's not our information. And I don't know why Solomon let the FBI off the hook there, but it shouldn't have been the Secret Service that was responding. This is what Louis Freeh is telling his senior investigator exchanging.
Right.
Yeah. So
one of the last thing I wanted to ask you about is this no paper memo.
Oh.
I think you mentioned briefly that that's connected to Garland in some way, but I haven't looked into that very deeply.
Well,
Can you?
I did a piece on it.
You did, okay.
On the 25th anniversary for the Curtin Gazette, which was John Cash's paper.
Right, and that's when Garland was nominated to the Supreme Court and all these documents were produced.
1,500 pages were produced by the Clinton Library.
Right.
Supposedly pertinent to Garland's nomination for the Supreme Court. This is the only one that I noted I could find no relevance to Garland at all. He's not named, he's not hinted at. There's something in the trade of the intelligence business. And I had a mentor who was a Marine counterintelligence guy, celebrated author and quite a guy. But anyhow, he used the phrase Black Valentine. You know what a Black Valentine is?
Actually, I think you explained it over the phone, where you slip something in and like a damning piece of evidence.
Damning piece, not I love you.
Yeah.
Basically. And so, I mean, and I've run into this in other cases. I mean, other incidents in the Oklahoma City bombing, unfortunately. There's some very key documents that were released. I'll talk about that maybe in a second, but back to the one. So 1,500 pages, I went through them all, and I find this one, and it's a memo on terrorism for H. Now, in the Clinton White House in May of '95, who could be referred to as H?
Hillary, I guess, yeah.
I mean, that's the only, it's two lawyers back and forth with a memo saying that the general counsel at the time, a guy named Abner McVeigh, you should look up his summary history. Interesting guy, former federal judge, congressman, bagman for Dan Rostenkowski. He was Speaker of the House that went to jail for graft.
Oh, really? Okay.
Anyhow, McVeigh is the general counsel when this is going on, and these two lawyers are saying in a memo, well, when I'm saying it, it's for the other one, but it's for Hillary, that Abner McVeigh has directed Justice Department attorneys that some information is too sensitive to be put on paper.
Yeah.
Now, I say in my little article, I've had access to the nuclear war plans. I've had access to some very highly classified information in the U.S. government when I was a Marine on active duty. I've never seen anything too sensitive to be put on paper.
Yeah.
Told this is suppression. That's what it is. And the other thing, Garland, when you go through those pages, he's meeting not regularly, but he frequently meets with Deputy General Counsel Elena Kagan. She's the McVeigh's deputy, and so you had this.
Everybody involved got rewarded. It looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And why do you think that's connected to Garland? Just because he was part of the team the no paper memo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is the guy running the investigation.
Okay.
And organizing the prosecution for the first trial.
Right. So you think the ultimate directive might have come from him, like, hey guys, let's not talk about this. Let's not document our.
No, I think that came from McVeigh.
Oh, okay.
But but Garland is in full agreement with it.
Right.
Now, there's another little.
And how do you know that? Sorry, that Garland's in full agreement with it, just because implicitly.
Yeah, implicitly. Yeah, I mean, look, did he stand up and say, "Well, we can't"?
Sure.
Now, there's another little piece of information to support this. Now, I think it's also in spring of '98. What's his name? Henry Hyde is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. And he's got a pissing contest going with Janet Reno. And this is really inside Washington stuff, but you know the difference between authorization and appropriations?
I know the difference between the words, but not in the context you're talking about.
Right. In this town, Congress has committees. You have authorization committees and you have appropriations committees.
Sure.
Authorization committees are more concerned about policy and so on.
Okay.
So when they pass kind of vague general budgets, that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
You can't write a check.
It's not line item or anything.
No, it's these appropriations.
Okay.
One in the House, one in the Senate, and then the subcommittees thereof that count.
Gotcha.
What they say can be spent.
Right.
Authorization can authorize $2 trillion for kumquat purchases. Doesn't mean that, Appropriations, you write a check.
Okay.
So there's the budget agreement act of 1970 something, I think, had allowed some government agencies to not have to go through authorization, which really doesn't, it's policy stuff. It's navel gazing, if you want to look at it. Doesn't mean anything. So the Justice Department in 95 was allowed not to go through authorization. They had to go through appropriations. So there's a pissing contest between Hyde and Reno. He's threatening to reinstitute and make the Justice Department go through authorization and appropriations. Major pain in the ass.
Right.
And it's gotten kind of nasty. And Hyde is being interviewed by Chicago Tribune. He's a Chicago politician there, Illinois congressman. And he's being interviewed, and he says something to the effect, no, I'm sorry, it's not Hyde, it's McVeigh is being interviewed, and he says, I'll pull that out. Let's stretch a little bit.
Sure.